Hi, everyone. Welcome to our lunchtime conversation on mindful eating. I'm Erica Leon, registered dietitian and eating disorder dietitian. And I'm so excited to have a special guest today, Dr. Alexis Conason. I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Great. Hi, thank you so much for having me, Erica. I'm Dr. Alexis Conason, and I am a clinical psychologist. I specialize in working with people with different types of overeating issues and body image concerns. And I do a ton of work with mindful eating. I've created a program that I call the Anti-Diet Plan to help people get off of dieting and into their bodies and really develop a more peaceful relationship with food. So I'm just so excited to be here and to talk to you about mindful eating.
Thank you so much. So, I actually said to you before we came on that I've been racing around like a crazy person this morning, and so I said, please, help me calm down, please.
So I think it's a fabulous idea to start off with just a brief meditation if everybody's game. So we don't have to, and this is the great thing about meditation, we can just bring it into our lives in the here and now. It doesn't have to be this special activity where we go off to like a shrine or have to have a special cushion or anything like that. So wherever you're seated, just stay in your seat and try to start to build a upright posture. So just not leaning back on the backrest necessarily of the chair, trying to sit up nice and straight. And you can close your eyes if you'd like to do that, or you can leave your eyes open in a soft downward gaze. And just simply start to bring your awareness to your breathing. So noticing the air as it comes in and out of your body. You may notice the sensations of the air as it enters and exits through your nostrils. Perhaps noticing the air a little bit cooler as it comes in and a little bit warmer as it comes out. And you might notice the gentle rise and fall of your belly as it expands on the in-breath and contracts on the out-breath. And just taking this moment for yourself. Allowing yourself to let go of or just notice the thoughts, the worries, the busyness that so often fills our mind, and really trying to become present right here, right now. You've committed to creating this space for yourself, taking this time to join us live here and allowing yourself to really be here, because we can only be right here where we are right now. So we can bring that to a close and start our discussion. But that, just focusing on the breath for a moment, that's a tool that I think is really accessible for people to do. Again, wherever, whenever, no special equipment needed. We don't even really need to have a guided meditation or a cushion. We certainly don't need to go to like a meditation center or a monastery or anything like that. It's just about bringing awareness.
I actually noticed listening to your voice, it was very soothing. And so I certainly prefer guided meditations. I don't know about you, but you're saying that people can just do this anywhere.
Yeah, it's really just about bringing your awareness to your breathing. I mean, there's lots of great guided meditations, especially there's so many apps out there that I think make it super accessible, because you can just, we carry our phones with us like everywhere these days, even places we probably shouldn't. So it's just about, opening up the app, taking anywhere, it could be 3 minutes, it could be 5 minutes, it could be 30 minutes, however long you want to devote to your practice, and putting on one of the guided meditations. But if you don't have a guided meditation, you can also just bring your awareness to your breathing or to the present moment. It doesn't have to be focusing on breath. It can be focused on the sounds that are going on right now. It could be focused on the things that you're seeing around you, the sensations that are going on. Really, it could be just about anything.
That's true. I just noticed the noises behind you, the New York City streets. Yeah. Paying attention to that.
And, I think we can get lost in the narrative around some of these things, or we can just notice it. Like, okay, there was a horn honking. That's just the noise that happened. Or we can get very attached to these stories and, put an emotional component on it, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that the horn's not honking. It's ruining this interview. No one's going to be able to hear me. What am I going to do? We can really send ourselves into a panic. The same exact sound. It's just about how we react to it.
Thank you for that. So tell us, I'm just curious. I know that you have a program that you run called the Anti-Diet Program.
Anti-diet plan.
Anti-Diet Plan. Can you explain a little bit about what you do in that plan?
Yeah. So the Anti-Diet Plan I developed because I was noticing some really universal themes in my work with clients. So I work, as I said, mostly with people struggling with overeating issues. And really what most of these people are struggling with is dieting and kind of restricting and depriving themselves of certain foods. So we think that the problem is overeating, but overeating is usually a problem of also undereating or restricting our food, or even if we're not actually restricting our food, kind of being judgmental about our eating, having rules around food, good foods, bad foods. I know this is very much in the work that you do, Erica.
That's what I hear every day. Yeah.
So, I kind of found that I'm repeating myself a lot over and over again. So I thought, how wonderful to be able to just get a group of people together and be able to teach some of what I think are really the foundational skills for changing our relationship with food through a mindfulness lens. So the program is based on mindful eating, but I think that in addition to mindful eating, we need to come to ourselves. Another thing that I noticed is a lot of programs of mindful eating aren't really steeped in the meditation. So it's kind of just about like mindful eating and maybe even like mindful eating with a promise that you're going to change your body or that you're going to eat less or something like that. And to me, that's like missing the point. Absolutely. So my program is based on mindfulness, meditation, and mindful eating, but with a strong focus on fostering self-compassion and acceptance, right? So accepting ourselves where we are and trying to be compassionate. And it's a structured program. So I, really walk people through the different skills of recognizing, tuning into our body's own internal appetite system, recognizing hunger, fullness, what foods we enjoy, how our body reacts to certain foods, using mindfulness to listen in a different way to our body.
So I'm just going to ask you a question. It's a challenge because I get this question all the time as a dietitian. There are people who say to me that I just don't want to pay attention to what I'm eating. I just want to be distracted. It's much easier for me to eat being distracted. So I guess the question is, how would you bring someone and how would you offer to help someone just to begin to become a little bit more focused on the awareness?
So I think it's really important to honor the fact that like distracted eating and mindless eating is serving us in some way. And, oftentimes we use distracted eating or mindless eating as a way to soothe ourselves, right? Like emotional eating, binge eating. This is often not done in a mindful way. And that is a powerful tool for people. So it's both about working through why that feels so enticing to, eat distracted and what some of the feelings are that might get brought up if we were to be present with our body and with our food, while also giving different, tools and techniques to really care for ourselves more deeply around our emotions. So what I find is that often we're using, food to meet lots and lots of our emotional needs, but it's not really the best match for our emotional needs all the time, because like if you're really feeling lonely, it's just kind of like it's beyond the job description of food to take care of loneliness. So so through using food to like care for your loneliness, we're also depriving ourselves of really addressing the issues with loneliness and kind of thinking about how to connect with other people or what things that might be really nourishing for that need. So, I always say like we don't have to take away anything if somebody feels, really attached to wanting to eat in a distracted way. That's fine. Are there other ways that they can add mindfulness into their day, or even starting with an eating experience that's a less conflictual eating experience. So for example, if dinner time tends to be the time that we really eat in a distracted way, and that's, someone's using that to really like tune out and relax and maybe even numb themselves, then like maybe could they be a little bit more present during breakfast? If breakfast is kind of less of a tendency to do that, or even doesn't have to be the full meal, but maybe just a minute of breakfast.
That's a good point. I like that. Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be all or none. Lots of people think like if you start eating mindfully, then you have to eat mindfully all the time.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So when it feels overwhelming, even setting a timer for just like a minute.
So I'm just curious. Can I call you Alexis?
Yes, of course.
I'm just curious how you got into this, how you became interested in emotional eating, and even what led you to become a psychologist. You have a lot of training. So I'm just at your background maybe a little bit.
Sure. So I wanted to become a psychologist. Boy, that started, I think, when I was, fairly young, because I was just, I'm fascinated by people and like what goes on in their minds and how other people think. And psychology was one of the few classes in high school that I really took to. I wasn't the star student, so it kind of started to foster a sense of confidence for myself to be able to excel in something. So that was something that I stuck to. It was really interesting to me. And then how I got into the eating part of it was through kind of the other side of this field. So I started off my career very much steeped in fat phobia, like so many of us out there were raised with it. I was certainly raised in a very toxic diet culture where, I grew up believing unquestioningly that thinner is better. And I started out my career, I did my postdoctoral training in a weight loss clinic, in a bariatric surgical weight loss clinic. And I thought I was going to have a career helping people lose weight. And when I got into private practice, I started realizing that, what I had been trained to do does not work. Right?
Yes.
Calories in, calories out. That's not quite what it's about.
Amen. Yeah.
And I started realizing that, I think that approach is actually really harmful for people, that I was seeing women, men and women, but especially women of all shapes and sizes, just feeling absolutely terrible about themselves, about their body, feeling that their self-worth would be, improved if they could just lose weight, preoccupied with losing weight. And I thought there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a different way. I was also attending a lot of conferences, seeing the results of millions and millions of dollars in NIH funding and obesity research, and no one had any idea how to help people lose weight and maintain it for a significant amount of time. So I started looking for a different approach, and I kind of stumbled upon mindful eating. The first mindful eating workshop that I took to learn about mindful eating was actually from a weight loss perspective. They were encouraging people to be mindful and calorie cut by 500 calories.
Yes, it's really co-opting the language that we use now to mindful eating.
It made no sense. Yeah. But the best thing that happened to me there was that at that workshop, I met a group of really lovely women who were health at every size activists, and they were like, shh, here's a secret. It's not necessarily unhealthy. Our weight doesn't determine our health. And
oh my God, that's such a radical concept.
It blew my mind. I was like, what are you talking about? I had been trained, just steeped in all of this, obesity research and the weight loss world, and it blew my mind. So I attended a health at every size conference and started getting more involved in it. And that's been really a passion of mine for the past, probably 8 years or so.
That's kind of what happens to many of us. We have an aha moment, just kind of just so many of us have been raised in diet culture and kind of thinking that that's how everything is supposed to be. All my training, my master's degree, my undergraduate degree in nutrition was all about calories in, calories out. I mean, I'm embarrassed to say some of the things that I used to do, including promoting some really unhealthy ways of weight loss. So yeah, same thing. I had an aha moment when all the patients that I was seeing and giving diets to came back with disordered eating. and so, yeah, I said there had to be a better way.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's really unfortunate that, I think it's not uncommon that people, like you said, people come to this almost like accidentally. Like it's the people who realize independently through, kind of maybe being people who tend to question the norm a little bit. Like I'm just someone who's curious and like I tend not to take things for granted. So when I saw something that wasn't working, I started delving into it. But like it's not in our training. It's not in, even more problematic, it's not in like the medical training at all. So it's this top-down problem where clinicians, physicians, therapists, dietitians, like we're being trained in this harmful weight bias model. And then people are going out into the medical system and not getting the care that they need. So,
absolutely. I was just reading this morning that someone is really struggling to find a doctor who will treat her despite what her weight is. And her problems are not related to her body shape or size. They're related to a physical ailment. And it's impossible to find a doctor who is, I'm going to just say it, quote unquote, fat friendly, someone who really understands the needs of a person in a larger body. I know we've shifted the conversation from mindful eating into the health at every size movement, but they really do fit together.
I don't think that you can talk about mindful eating without talking about health at every size, because really they're so linked. And this is one of the things that I take up. Like I feel like with mindful eating, many people have taken this small element, like this little tool of mindful eating, and isolated it from all of its context. But how can we listen to our body and trust our body without feeling confident that our body will take care of us and provide us with the wisdom to work towards health, whatever our shape or size might be, right? So it's like health at every size, self-acceptance. If we're fighting against our body, we can't hear what our body's telling us.
Absolutely. I have this problem, I'm not going to say daily, but I have this problem often that I have parents bringing their children in and, asking me to help them lose weight, worrying the child is going to have the same problems that I had growing up. I grew up and I felt like I was a larger person and, really kind of doing harm by inflicting their own biases on their children. I'm just wondering if you've ever dealt with any of that in your practice.
What was that?
If you've dealt with families, if you've dealt with parents, bringing their quote unquote child who's in a larger body and asking you to help them lose weight, I'm wondering how you deal with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't work with kids, so I don't get so much of that. But what I do get, which I think is really powerful, is a lot of women who come in seeking treatment because their children, they have now become mothers themselves, and they are, saying, I suffered so much as a child when my mother kind of put her eating issues on me, and how can I not pass this along to my kids?
Yeah.
So I always think that's like a really beautiful motivation to get help for yourself. Like, and sometimes for so many of us, especially moms, it's hard to prioritize ourselves like outside of our kids. But when they kind of just like line up, and we know that like taking care of ourselves and resolving our own issues around food and body image is the best thing that we can do for our kids, it can be a really powerful motivator to start shifting things.
Yeah, I like that message. Is that we have to take care of ourselves. I'll just say that so many moms and dads too just are so focused on taking care of their kids that really their own self-care on the flip side kind of falls to the wayside. And so I wonder how you deal with that piece.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I agree. I think that it's so hard for people to prioritize our own well-being. And we somehow, and I think it's cultural because I see so much of just like this busyness. Like we have to be doing all the time for other people, whether it's like our kids or our work or, it's this like 24/7 on demand, checking emails in the middle of the night or at the dinner table. It's like
exhausting.
Yeah, it's exhausting. It's nonstop. And somehow we have like come to believe that there's no consequence to our own well-being. And I think that there is. Like when we are stretched so thin and we are not taking care of ourselves, we are not going to be able to be there in our fullest capacity for our kids, for our work, for our spouse, whoever, for our friends, So I think it is so important to, it's cliched, but the idea, put your own oxygen mask on first before someone else's. Like we can't be there, for other people in our lives until we're able to really fully be there and take care of ourselves. So I think,
That's such a good point. And it's so hard. I'm just saying it's a good point, but it's so hard for so many people that I work with to actually implement that. Is there one small thing that you would suggest someone, get started on? Because that is really something that I see a lot in my practice.
Yeah. So I think that there's so many different ways to get started. So I think you have to think about what works for you, but trying to create a little bit of time, right? Like, so changes start small, like lasting changes start small. It's when we say, okay, I'm starting, this brand new plan, change my life. Everything's going to be different starting tomorrow, right? That lasts for like a day or two. Yes. But if we can say, can I find, 3 minutes to meditate? For example, if you want to integrate, start a meditation practice, can you find 3 minutes? And it can be 3 minutes on the subway. It could be 3 minutes in the bathroom. Like, it doesn't matter.
Meditating on the subway. I love it.
I can't tell you how many of my clients are meditating on the subway. It's like there is no perfect place to meditate. I would say like the perfect place to meditate is the place where you meditate. So for many people, the subway is the perfect place to meditate because we're trapped there. It's like the one place that we can't really like be doing anything else. We could distract ourselves with other ways, but no one's calling for our attention. Like that's often a time just for yourself. So put on the headphones, the guided meditation, 3 minutes. Ideally you can find a seat, but even if you're not seated, I think that's great. So starting to think about, if you want to set up a meditation practice, really starting with just 3 minutes a day. I even have a 3-minute guided meditation available on my website for people who just want something really kind of quick and simple without the big time commitment of saying, I'm going to do 30 minutes a day that you're never going to do.
That's wonderful. So I'll put the link to make sure that people have access to your 3-minute meditation. And I'm going to try it later. Thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was there.
Yeah.
What if 3 minutes is too much? What if someone just needs 1 minute?
1 minute. It could be seconds. It could be as simple as pausing and just taking 3 to 5 breaths and bringing all of your awareness to your breathing just for those 3 to 5 breaths. That's it. You've meditated.
You know what? I think that's a really helpful thing to remind people that it doesn't have to be 3 minutes. It doesn't have to be minutes. It can just be a couple of deep breaths. I think that can really help center people.
One of the foundational tools that I use in my the anti-diet plan program is what I call like a mindful moment or a pause. Like it's just this really brief opportunity to check in with yourself. How are you doing? How are you feeling right now? Like I just think we've gotten so lost from ourselves. Often we're going through our day and like we're asking everyone else, right? You greet someone, hey, how are you doing? How are you doing? How often do we like stop and do that for ourselves? How are we doing?
Yeah, you're right. That's a really good point.
And so I think that even just making a change, like to on occasion pause and say, how am I doing right now? Is there anything that's calling my attention? Is there a way that I need to be cared for? Am I hungry? Am I tired? Am I carrying tension? You know, so many of us walk around with like our shoulders up at our ears, and we're just so tight and tense all the time, and just taking a moment to consciously relax some of those muscles can be really powerful. The other, yeah.
I was going to ask one question, but I want you to go first.
Well, I was just going to say that the other thing that I think is really people, again, not to like make, I think things affect men and women, but I see this so much in women, is the idea of pleasure, is just finding things that we enjoy and allowing ourselves to take pleasure in things. So I think even finding really small little moments, again, to do things that are pleasurable.
I think that is a lovely thing, and it really ties into the question that I was going to ask, which is, so many of the people I work with also work with a therapist. It's, you know, as a dietitian, you know, I certainly recognize that we often need to work in a team to manage some emotional issues, emotional eating. But it sounds like reminding ourselves to do sort of checking in during the day, it seems that it would be a very good way to help prevent some perhaps emotional eating later in the day, if you kind of have a sense of what's going on, checking in with yourself. Would you say that that's true?
Yeah, I would, because what often happens is that we're, you know, we find ourselves, you know, in the evening, maybe standing in front of the fridge with like a, you know, all of a sudden there's like the empty pint of ice cream in front of us, or whatever it is. Like, it's like this feeling of like, all of a sudden, you know, how did this happen? And for most people, emotional eating, if we look back, there are a lot of signs and triggers and events that are leading up to that instance of emotional eating. And we're just, you know, we're tuned out. We're not aware of them. Right. So when we can start to notice, right, like each of those things earlier on, and I always say things are a lot easier to intervene when they're smaller, more manageable issues than when like the snowball has gone into effect. Right. So if we notice like midday, oh my gosh, I just had a fight with my boss, or my boss just said this comment that really made me feel like she doesn't see me or value me, and that makes me feel crappy. If we can recognize that and say to ourselves, wow, that was a hard experience. What a tough thing I just went through. Is there anything I can do to like take care of myself right now? What can I do to be kind to myself? You know, how might I treat a friend who's going through a difficult time? And make the space for ourselves. We are much less likely, I think, to kind of find ourselves emotionally eating and not understand why, because we're dealing with our emotional needs in a different way.
No, I like that. That's a really good reminder. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. So just in conclusion, is there anything else you think that would be helpful for our viewers to hear about your program, or about anything that you offer, or any other last minute tidbits?
Yeah, so I offer a free 30-day the Anti-Diet Plan introductory course. So if anyone's interested in kind of like finding out what the Anti-Diet Plan is, what it's about, how to develop a meditation practice, what mindful eating is, a lot of those questions are answered in that. It's a 4-part email series. You'll get 1 email per week for 4 weeks with assignments and things to integrate each of the steps into your daily life. So that, I think, is a kind of nice low risk way to find out more. And yeah, that's available on my website.
Oh, thank you. That's wonderful. All right, I'll make sure that we link that below.
Okay, great.
So, thank you so much. This has been very informative.
Oh, thank you.
Alexis, I appreciate it, and I look forward to meditating with you.
I hope everyone will.
Okay, everyone. Hope that was helpful. Any questions that you haven't been able to answer, feel free to put them under the comments, and we'll be sure to get our answers to you. Okay.
I would love that.
Bye, Alexis.
Thanks, Erica.
Bye. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a great day.